Have you ever wondered how the heck you're supposed to lose weight or drop body fat while you're training for a triathlon? You train hard, you've put in the hours, you sweat bucket loads, and you think you eat well, but the scales barely budge and you end up feeling exhausted, hungry, and you're still not seeing the results. This is one of the most common struggles I see in triathletes because the reality is losing body fat while you're training a lot is a delicate balance. Despite, doing 10, 15, 20 hours of training a week, you can't actually out-train a bad diet. If you get it wrong, you risk underfueling your training, smashing your immune system, which is not what we want because that puts us on the back seat when we have to take time off, and just leaving yourself feeling flat, fatigued, tired, and frustrated. In today's episode, I'm going to unpack exactly why fat loss feels so hard when you're training for a triathlon, the mistakes I see, and most importantly, how to do it properly without wrecking your performance, your health, or your sanity. And this is not about just slashing calories, cutting carbs, or riding the struggle street bus right throughout your training week. It's about fueling for the work required and being smart around when, how, and if you should even be trying to lose weight or drop body fat during certain phases of your season and your year. So let's dive in. Let's start with a bit of a reality check because triathletes often think that if they just train harder or longer or more often, that the weight will just automatically fall off. But the truth is, that's rarely the case. Like, take a look at an Ironman course. There are all shapes and sizes out there. And to compete in a full distance event, you're going to need to do probably at least 10 hours of training a week. Some people often are training double that. So I see a lot of triathletes training really hard, training a lot of hours, potentially even underfueling and just feeling exhausted and still not seeing the body composition results that they're chasing. It's really easy to fall in the trap of thinking you can just out-train a bad diet and your body fat will change. But when you are training for triathlon, especially long course, the game changes. Your energy demands are through the roof. Yeah, they're way higher than you probably give them credit for. You are burning a ton of calories. And yes, you also have to fuel to adapt and recover from that training to be able to turn up fresh for your next training session and the one after that and the one after that and the one after that. If you don't fuel properly, you're at risk of poor training quality, slow recovery, definitely a higher injury risk. And what's really common is that fall in a heap by the end of the big training week or training block. You're starting to question all of your life's choices and you can be so far in a hole, you just want your race to hurry up and be here so you can finally get this thing done already. And you're a nervous wreck that you haven't done enough training by the time you get to toe the start line. So while it might feel logical to cut calories and ramp up training and punish ourselves, what most triathletes don't realize is how quickly you can end up underfueled, overstressed, and further away from your goals by doing that. It is a very delicate balance and one that so many triathletes get wrong. So you are not alone if you're like, tick, tick, and tick, Taryn, I am all those things. And it's not because you are lazy or you lack willpower. It's because the demands of triathlon training make fat loss far more complicated than just eat less, move more. So that's why in today's episode, I wanted to break down exactly why fat loss feels so hard during those heavy training blocks, because I see where people go wrong all the time. And most importantly, some tips and strategies for how to do it properly without compromising your performance or your health. So let's unpack why losing body fat feels hard when you're deep in training and why your body sometimes fights against you every step of the way. So first up, you need to recognize that your energy needs are quite high. When you're training for a triathlon, especially in your big weeks, your body is burning a serious amount of fuel just to get through those sessions. But the challenge is you still need to eat to support that training and that workload so that you can recover well and back up to go again the next day. If you're constantly trying to lose weight, drive fat loss, and create too big a deficit all the time, you will feel it fast and you're going to feel fatigued, a feeling of heavy legs. You're going to potentially sleep poorly. You might hit the pillow fast and be snoring in 3 seconds flat, but your quality of sleep might potentially not be optimal. And mood swings. Oh, the mood swings. The euphoria post-training to like the post-afternoon grump slump. All of those things are signs that nutrition is not working for you. It's working against you. Secondly, your appetite can be all over the shop. Some athletes lose the appetite completely, and the more training you do and the bigger the volume and the harder it is, the worse it gets, while others just get insatiably hungry and starving all the time. And you never feel like you can fill a hole. You eat and you're still not quite satisfied. And that's when the snack monster often creeps in with not great choices to try and give you a pick-me-up and all those simple fast-acting sugars to help alleviate the hole you put yourself in. It's easy to get stuck in that cycle of under-eating during the day or around training and then overcompensating later in the day, particularly the afternoon window after you've opened the floodgates for lunch. You might be restricting and holding off from eating until lunchtime, and then lunchtime comes and it's really difficult to then close the gates and be satisfied, and you end up picking all afternoon. All of those things can totally derail any fat loss effort that you might have. Then there's the fatigue factor that we need to consider, because when you're tired, physically, mentally, emotionally, your body craves quick, fast-acting carbohydrates and sugars and, think things like candy, chocolate to pick itself up. That's why you might find yourself reaching for those things or craving things like lollies or candy, biscuits, chips, ice cream, an entire block of chocolate after a big day, even if you started it off with the best of intentions. And let's not forget the psychological side of things. So you've just smashed a 4-hour bike ride. You slogged yourself through your long run off the bike. So you feel like you've earned that pizza, all those few extra beers, or, the whole block of chocolate. And they're getting smaller and smaller these days. They used to be 250 grams and now they're only 180 grams. They just keep getting smaller as the price increases. So look, I'm all for enjoying all those beautiful foods that you love. I'm not that kind of dietitian. I think everything in balance, right? But being much more strategic around how we choose to consume those foods rather than binge eating them or feeling like you can treat yourself or you've earned it is not the kind of behavior we want to link with those types of foods. And if that's becoming a daily or a weekly pattern for you, those earned treats, I hate that word, can really quickly add up and sabotage all of your fat loss goals, even without you realizing. And you can undo that even on your longest, hardest training day, or undo your hard work of Monday to Friday in 2 days on the weekend that are much more loose or ad libitum and a bit more free for all. And finally, don't underestimate stress and sleep. So heavy training loads can really mess with your sleep quality and actually drive cortisol. Exercise is a stress, right? And often as triathletes, we do a lot of stress-induced exercise. It's how we get fitter and faster. But when cortisol is high, it's really hard or harder for your body to prioritize fat loss when it's in that fight or flight response all the time. Your body's just in survival mode and it's not in a relaxed, let's shed some of that body fat mode. So all of those factors laid in with your appetite, how many calories you're burning, you're potentially not doing a great job of eating around training and it's sending out all of your hunger hormones later in the day. All of those factors can make fat loss feel way harder than it should be. If you don't approach it strategically, you can end up stuck in this frustrating cycle of training more, eating less, but getting nowhere. That's why you can't follow a generic calorie deficit, fat loss approach, slash calories like your work colleagues that sit on their butt all day might be doing and having success. Triathletes need a much smarter approach, one that respects both your training load and your goals. So some key things to consider before you even try to lose some weight. And by weight, I mean body fat. We don't want to lose our muscle mass. Before we dive into how to actually lose body fat, I want to hit pause and get you to ask yourself a couple of really important questions, because not every triathlete should be chasing fat loss, or at least not right now, maybe sometime in the future. So firstly, what is actually your why? Is your goal to perform better, feel better, or is it purely aesthetic? So you look sexy in your tri suit. I get it. They're quite revealing. Is it purely about looks? Like, be honest with yourself. And that's totally okay if it is. But I want you to actually understand why this is a thing or a goal for you. Because it's important to recognize or understand that chasing body fat loss purely for aesthetic reasons can sometimes go completely against what your body needs to perform to the best of its ability. Secondly, so you need to understand why first. Dig deeper and understand why you want to do this thing. Secondly, be realistic about the timing that you do it, because we shouldn't be constantly trying to lose weight, which I know so many people do, always perpetually on this never-ending fat loss circuit. The best time to focus on fat loss is not during your heaviest training blocks, which is when most people want to do it. It's during the off season or lower volume phases when your training load is maybe lighter. You can more safely create a small deficit without absolutely tanking your sessions or affecting your recovery. So trying to cut hard when you're deep in Ironman training is a recipe for disaster. It's going to lead to poor training quality, injuries and hormonal shifts, a suppressed immune function, and probably burnout. And ironically, it can actually stall fat loss altogether if you put yourself in that state. Third, always put your health first, okay? This is your temple. This is your high performance machine. Low energy availability in our population as a sport is very real, and it's a huge problem in triathletes when we do a lot of exercise. If you're underfueling for extended periods of time, knowingly or unknowingly, you risk long-term damage to your metabolism, your bone health, your hormone balance, and your immune system, and it is just not worth it. So before you jump into any fat loss phase, you need to ask yourself, is now the right time based on where you're at in your training? Is my primary focus performance or fat loss? Am I in a place where I can create these small, sustainable changes to potentially put myself into a tiny deficit without compromising my health or my training quality? If the answer to any of those is no, then just hold off. It's okay. There's a smarter and safer time to focus on body composition change, and that time is not during every key training block or every time that you have a race on the cards. Which brings me to then, how do you actually do it the right way without compromising performance? So we understand some of the reasons why it can be so hard to drive fat loss when we're training a lot. Our body is kind of fighting against us to do that. But how do you actually do it without sabotaging your performance and your health? Because this is where it gets tricky, and honestly, where most athletes get it wrong. This is not about drastically slashing calories, cutting carbs, skipping meals, punishing yourself and feeling like your throat is cut. In fact, those approaches are some of the fastest ways to absolutely wreck yourself and your results. What it comes down to is being strategic. Okay? Strategic with when you aim to create a deficit, how much of a deficit you aim for, and where you adjust your food intake across the day and across your training week. And most importantly, making sure you're still fueling the work required on key training days, and that's not really negotiable. Ever. And is where most triathletes trip up, because they cut back on the wrong days in the wrong ways and end up feeling terrible. They're underperforming in their training sessions and stuck in that frustrating train more, weigh the same loop. And you're like, I don't get it. What is going on? But hopefully you understand why now. But the thing I need you to hear loud and clear is that there's no one size fits all plan to how you do it. As much as I'd love to give you like the perfect strategy on a silver platter here on the podcast, the reality is I don't know enough about you to do it properly and safely and effectively. And honestly, that goes against every professional and high achieving bone in my body. because I don't believe in throwing blanket advice out there that might get you average results or worse, send you backwards. I want you to do it right the first time, so you only have to do it once, and that means that individualization is key. It depends on your training phase, your specific goals, and your body composition starting point, plus your life outside of triathlon. All of that matters because there's no point burning the candle at both ends to try and reach some elusive goal that you've set yourself that wasn't really maintainable and achievable anyway. That's why inside the Triathlon Nutrition Academy, this is exactly what I teach you, is how to fuel properly, support your training load, and create the right conditions for fat loss in a way that's safe and sustainable and athlete and individual specific. So if you want to learn how to do that properly and avoid the mistakes most triathletes make when trying to achieve that, then the TNA is exactly where we do that. I'll pop the link in the show notes if you want to learn more about the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program. Now, I wanted to share a real life example of how it looks when you get it right. One of our TNA athletes, Erin Burge, is an absolute rock star when it comes to many things, but in particular this. Before joining the Triathlon Nutrition Academy, Erin did a typical kind of yo-yo diet thing where she's lost weight before but has been unsuccessful at keeping it off in the long term and struggling to see the changes that she wanted to in her body for both health and performance. Fast forward to going through the program, coming out the other side and joining our alumni program, Erin has lost over 50 pounds in the last 12 months. But more importantly than those numbers is she's stronger, she's faster, she's healthier, and she's performing better than she ever has before. She is literally unstoppable. And the thing is, she didn't do it by slashing calories or following a cookie cutter diet plan. She actually did it by learning how to fuel properly first so that she could dial in her fueling to training and racing in her daily nutrition, day in, day out, and strategically work on her body composition at the right times in her seasons, because Erin loves to race and she will often do 2 events in one weekend and be racing every single weekend. Thank you so much for popping into the podcast today, Erin.
Happy to be here.
Yay. I firstly wanted to just start by saying a massive congratulations. You honestly, watching you grow over the last few years, you have gone from strength to strength, and it doesn't seem like you're ever taking your foot off the gas. And I'm so proud of everything you've achieved over the last couple of years knowing you.
Thank you so much. It's been fun.
And before we dive into some of that success, can you take us back though to the beginning and what it was like for you before you actually joined the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program, and what made you realize after doing triathlon for so many years already without nutrition support, what needed to change for you to go forwards?
Yeah, it's actually a little bit easier to answer this question in hindsight. I think at the time you had been on a podcast, the Tried Out podcast, and you had talked about the tired triathlete. And like many of us in the program, I sat there like, yep, that's me, that's me, that's me. So that's why I started following you and eventually joined the Academy. In hindsight, though, now that I kind of know what's going on with nutrition, what was going on at the time was I had kind of broken my body's ability to know how to use energy and trying to lose weight when, as if that was the only goal. Yeah. Before it was being a tired triathlete and not using fueling appropriately for being somebody who wanted to perform in addition to trying to lose weight.
Yeah, it's a hard mix, isn't it? So fast forward to now, though, you've worked so hard to learn how to eat like a triathlete and, fueling for the work required to have some really epic rockstar race performances. You are our 3-tier goal person if you've not met Erin before, but you continue to improve every single time you toe the start line. There's always some sort of gain across each of the 3 disciplines, or, you get better at your race nutrition plan or even carbohydrate loading, but you've also focused on body composition and you've lost over 40 pounds in the last 12 months. Massive congratulations. Yeah. It's just incredible to see that shift in you. Without giving away what we do inside the Triathlon Nutrition Academy program, what were some of the key things that you started to do differently that helped you lose body fat and also improve your performance?
Yeah. So, transparency, I've been in the program for 2.5 years. So it's first of all, patience is part of it because, like I said, in hindsight, I do think I kind of broke my body's ability to know when to eat, when not to eat. And so starting the program and doing the things that you teach us to do at first was truly all about performance. I had kind of given up on losing weight and had felt too tired and felt lousy. I didn't want to feel lousy anymore. So for the first 2 years, it was literally all about fueling for performance. And as I started to fuel for performance, my body started learning how to use the fuel that I was giving it. And I also started to remember what feeling full felt like and feeling thirsty felt like, and things that I kind of had forgotten in the yo-yoing of dieting I've done my whole life. And so as I kind of looked at tackling a full distance this year and tackling specifically Ironman Lake Placid, that's a very hilly course, I wanted to see if I could still fuel for performance and change my body composition a little bit. So I actually went through a lot of the lessons again, a lot of the master classes again, especially some of the early ones. And while still preparing for races and fueling for those races, I worked really hard on honestly focusing a lot on mostly protein and how you teach us to use the right macros for our bodies, really focusing on that. I learned what feeling full feels like and stopping to eat at that point. And counting is not something I am excited about doing. I know that when there's a means to an end, I will count. But this time around, I didn't count calories at all, ever in the whole year. Just mostly stuck with focusing on the macros specifically and lifting heavy and doing some different things there. And if you've heard me on any of Taryn's other podcasts, I race a lot. I actually took like 5 months off of racing. That's a lot for me.
Yeah. Did you survive?
I did. I mean, I was jonesing when season came, I was ready. But that allowed me to do some different periodization that I've been able to do in the first 2 years when I was literally racing every single weekend, or at least once a month all year round. So yeah, taking a step back and really focusing on the lessons that you taught us and working hard. It's not easy, but reteaching my body how to listen to when you're full and when you're thirsty and those kind of things to do what you need to do.
Yeah. Not only have you lost a significant amount of weight or body fat, you've been able to keep it off in that time frame too. And just wanted to highlight that this is a long game plan. It's not a 8-week thing. It's taken Erin, 12 months of really trying to focus on that, put it more at the front of mind, but still keeping pace with what you need to eat as a triathlete.
Yeah. Yeah, I think probably the difference this time, because like I said, I've yo-yoed many times in my life. The difference this time is my bike power didn't go down. As a matter of fact, I'm still increasing on my FTPs every time. Yeah. So before, when I would lose weight, I would get weaker because I was doing it by, not eating essentially. So
gone too hard.
Yeah. Eating right and keeping performance still top of mind has allowed me to do it while still staying strong.
So amazing. So you've driven a whole heap of body fat loss while maintaining, if not improving, performance. And you're also crowned the USA Masters Female Aquabike Athlete of the Year. Like, you just have had an amazing time over the last couple of years. Knowing what you know now, though, what impact has fueling had on that performance and I guess your confidence as a triathlete?
Yeah, I mean, well, it's given me the confidence to take on these races that I probably wouldn't have, like Lake Placid. I had actually sworn I'd never do another full. And here I am, not only going after this full, but hoping that it gives me the opportunity to do Kona, which would be yet another full. And just knowing that now that I know how to take care of my body correctly, I'll finish, and I will finish way faster than I did when I did it 10 years ago, when I had no idea what I was doing.
And probably come out of the back of it stronger as well, ready to go again if you have to.
Hope so, because I have another really long race 2 weeks after it.
Oh my gosh. So if you don't know Erin's the type of athlete that races like literally every weekend. If there is a race on, she's doing it. And if there's the ability to do multiple things in the same weekend, she will also take that up. She'll race Saturday and Sunday for weeks in a row.
Yes.
I don't know anybody that races as much as you.
I do have one friend that beats me, but we are tracking towards our 100th race. And I think he's only going to beat me by like 3 races. So this year should be 100 races. So.
Oh, wow. That's amazing.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for sharing your story, Erin. I really wanted to highlight that for listeners because it is possible, but you have to be smart about the way you do it. And the difference when you approach weight loss or fat loss in the right way with a structured plan and the right education and individualized support, like the world is your oyster and there's no ceiling to what you can achieve if you're more strategic about it rather than just trying to punish yourself and starve yourself and then hope for the best. So it's not about suffering through hunger or eating less all the time. It's actually about fueling smarter. And Erin's a really good example of how to do that. And if she can do it, so can you with the right guidance and the right strategy.
Yes, the right education is key.
So she focused on performance first, which is important. So she understood how to fuel herself and fuel for the work required. And then she had the knowledge and skills to be able to eat sustainably to drive body fat loss when she wasn't eating for performance. So her body fat loss happened alongside improving her race times, and she's running faster than she ever has before, but she's also swimming and cycling faster than before. So her power to weight hasn't changed drastically, which is what you want. Most people drive fat loss at the loss of also lean tissue or lean muscle mass. That's the difference between when you approach fat loss the right way with a structured plan and some strategy behind it and some education, along with individualized support and regular accountability. It's not about suffering through hunger or eating less all the time or constantly trying to hold back. It's actually about fueling smarter. And if Erin can do that, I know that you can too with the right guidance and strategy behind you. So let's wrap up what we've covered in this episode. And I wanted to give you a bit of a summary of everything that I've learnt over the last 2 decades working with triathletes on exactly this. Yes, you can lose body fat while training for a triathlon, but it's not something that happens by accident generally. It is a slow strategic game and it needs to be done in a way that supports your training, your health, and your long-term goals. Otherwise, you will end up in the hurt locker. You need to remember that your body is already working really hard. Fuel it like the high-performance machine that it is. Focus on fueling key sessions. And if you're aiming for fat loss, create a small sustainable deficit outside of those key windows. And pick your timing really carefully because off-season, lower volume phases are your best time if fat loss is your goal. The biggest mistake I see is triathletes going too hard, too fast, too many calories, cutting out carbs, and wondering why they feel rubbish and stop seeing progress on the scales. And you deserve way better than that. So there is no one-size-fits-all approach. Every athlete is different. Your training phase, your life, your goals, those factors are all going to go into influencing what is right for you. But if you take away one thing from today's podcast, it's that the best place to start is nailing your day-to-day nutrition and your fueling plan, and everything else falls into place. So if you get your day-to-day fueling right and make sure you are fueling for the work required in training, from there you can start to make smart strategic adjustments to drive some body fat loss. It's not by skipping meals or being carb phobic or trying to eat the same way each day. That is just a recipe for failure, and I've seen that time and time again. If you've tried that method and strategy before, you'll know exactly what I'm talking about. So if any of this has hit home for you and you've realized that maybe your current approach isn't serving you, now is the perfect time to hit pause and reassess. Ask yourself, am I fueling my training properly? Am I supporting my body to recover and perform? Or am I stuck in that cycle of restriction, frustration, and just going in circles? Or I've done it before and I've had success before in this methodology, but I was unable to maintain it there because it was not part of my lifestyle. It didn't fit and it didn't work for me and my family. If you're ready to get this right once and for all, that's exactly what I teach inside the Triathlon Nutrition Academy. And if you're newer to this and you want to start small, the Triathlon Nutrition Kickstart course is the perfect place to build that foundation first. Both are designed specifically for triathletes by a sports dietitian who actually gets it, what it's like to juggle swim, bike, run, family, and life, throw some work in there as well, just to pay for the expensive sport, who wants to show you the right way to fuel and recover without the guesswork, confusion, and overwhelm. Once inside, there is no gatekeeping. Once I get to know you and your goals and your lifestyle, I can get really prescriptive on what you as an individual need to do to make progress the smartest way. I'll pop the link in the show notes if you want to check out both of those places, but come and join me and let's get nutrition working for you, not against you. Because the goal isn't just to lose weight, it's to actually drive body fat loss without losing muscle and to perform at your best and feel at your best every step of the way, not feeling like your throat's been cut. I'll pop the link in the show notes for both of those resources if you want to check them out. Come and join me and let's get your nutrition working for you, not against you.